I'm Emily, 24F, and I grew up with a stepsister, Vanessa, 28F, who made my life a living hell. For as long as I can remember, she's been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Meanwhile, I was the afterthought, the one who had to be understanding and mature while she got away with everything. My father remarried when I was 10, and Vanessa, who was 14 at the time, walked into our lives like she owned the place. It didn't take long for the favoritism to start. My stepmother treated Vanessa like she was royalty. Every time she wanted something, she got it. If I wanted something, suddenly there were financial concerns or more important priorities. And my father? He just let it happen. He wasn't a bad dad, but he was passive, always trying to avoid conflict. He'd tell me to be the bigger person whenever Vanessa did something cruel. That was the pattern. Vanessa caused problems, I had to deal with it. It started small, taking my clothes without asking, borrowing my things and never returning them, making little comments about my weight or how I wasn't as stylish as her. But over time, it escalated. If I liked a boy in school, she made sure he liked her instead. If I had a group of friends, she'd insert herself and slowly turn them against me. By the time I realized what she was doing, the damage was done. One of the worst moments was when I landed a summer internship at a well-known company. It was a huge deal for me, something I worked hard for. But Vanessa, she accidentally messed with an important email, deleted it, actually, which meant I never saw the deadline for paperwork. By the time I found out, it was too late. When I confronted her, she acted shocked. "Oh, I thought you already took care of it. I was just trying to help." Of course, my dad and stepmother believed her. It was just a mistake, Emily. Don't overreact. That was her game. She never outright did anything cruel in a way that could be proven. It was always misunderstandings, accidents, or things twisted just enough to make me look like the problem. When it came time for college, I had my heart set on a school out of state. I got in, had everything lined up. But Vanessa, of course, had an opinion. She convinced my parents it was too far and too expensive. They agreed, saying it would be better if I stayed closer to home. Meanwhile, when she applied to schools, no issue. They helped her with tuition, bought her a car, and sent her off with zero hesitation. When I brought it up, my father just said, "It's different, Emily. We're in a different financial situation now." Sure. I swallowed my resentment. I kept my head down, went to a local college, and figured if I just worked hard enough, I could make something of myself despite everything. But Vanessa made sure I never forgot my place. She'd drop passive-aggressive comments about how small town my school was or how she couldn't imagine settling for something less than her dream school. Then there was the engagement party. The final straw. I've been with my fiancé, Jake, for 3 years. He's amazing, supportive, and unlike the guys from high school, he saw right through Vanessa from the start. When we got engaged, my family was surprisingly supportive. I actually started to think maybe, just maybe, this was my moment. My chance to have something good without Vanessa ruining it. I was wrong. The night of the engagement party, Vanessa showed up in a white dress, a full-length, lace-covered, practically bridal gown, and she made sure to be the center of attention. She clinked her glass dramatically during the toast to tell a funny story about me from childhood, one that made me sound like a complete idiot. She flirted with Jake's best man, made sure to pull my parents aside for an important talk, and somehow, by the end of the night, half the guests were talking about her instead of my engagement. Jake saw how angry I was. "Are you seriously going to let her get away with this?" he asked. And for the first time, I didn't have an answer, because the truth was, I always let her get away with it. My whole life, I had let her win. That night, I decided I was done. No more sitting back while she walked all over me. No more letting her turn people against me. No more swallowing my anger and pretending it was fine. This time, I was going to do something about it. Vanessa had spent years making my life miserable, ruining opportunities, stealing my happiness piece by piece. But she had never faced any real consequences. That was about to change. After that disaster of an engagement party, I stopped playing the role Vanessa had forced me into my entire life. No more being quiet, no more being understanding, and definitely no more letting her get away with things. I didn't announce it, I didn't make a scene, I just started paying attention, watching, planning, and most importantly, making sure Vanessa's usual games didn't work on me anymore. The first opportunity came at a family dinner. But Vanessa, as always, had positioned herself at the center of attention, dramatically retelling some childhood story where I apparently cried for days because she got a puppy and I didn't. It wasn't even true, I've never been a dog person, but it got a few chuckles at my expense. Old me would have gritted my teeth and let it go. Not anymore. So, casually, I brought up my own little anecdote. "Speaking of memories," I said, cutting into my steak, "remember when you went out with my high school crush? And then my college crush? Oh, and my coworker that one time? What a coincidence." The table went silent. A few heads turned to Vanessa, who suddenly looked like she had swallowed a lemon. She tried to laugh it off, saying something about how it wasn't like that, but the damage was done. My aunt, always a gossip, raised an eyebrow and said, "Wait, what? That happened multiple times?" And just like that, Vanessa was forced to backpedal, making up a weak excuse about how things just happened that way. For the first time, she was on the defensive, and I wasn't even trying that hard. I just let the truth sit there, where everyone could see it. That was my new approach. No anger, no dramatic confrontations, just calm, composed reality checks. And it worked. I stopped reacting when Vanessa tried her usual digs. Instead, I played the part of the mature, successful sister, the one who had moved on from petty drama. It drove her insane. She was used to me snapping back, getting frustrated, making myself look like the overdramatic one. But now, she had nothing to work with. Meanwhile, I had bigger things to focus on. A few weeks later, I got a job offer. A good one. The kind of opportunity Vanessa would have sabotaged in the past. I made sure she had zero access to my application process, no way to interfere. When I officially accepted the position, I waited until we were all at a family gathering to mention it. "My new company is flying me out for training next month," I said casually, scrolling through my phone. "It's a really great opportunity." Vanessa's smile was tight. "Oh, I thought you were still looking. I just shrugged. Nope, I was careful this time. She got the message. But then, Vanessa pulled a classic Vanessa move. She announced she was getting married. I wasn't even surprised. She had been with her fiancé, Brian, for a little over a year. It wasn't exactly a stable relationship, but Vanessa never let something like that stop her. The second she saw me happy, moving forward in life, she had to upstage me. And she made sure to do it publicly, right in the middle of dinner. Brian didn't even look that excited, to be honest. He smiled, nodded, but there was something off in his expression. It was subtle, but I saw it. I started paying attention. Then, something unexpected happened. One of the guys Vanessa had stolen in high school reached out. He sent a casual message, saying he had been thinking about old times, and surprise, he now realized Vanessa had been manipulative. He apologized for believing her lies back then. It wasn't much, but it proved something. People were starting to see through her. That's when I decided to lean into my next move, social media. I wasn't posting anything directly about Vanessa, of course, but I started subtly reclaiming my narrative. Pictures of me with mutual friends, casual mentions of career wins, throwback posts of college memories. Harmless, but effective. The version of me Vanessa had built over the years, the weak, dramatic little stepsister, didn't match reality anymore, and people noticed. It worked even better at social events. At a party, Vanessa told a story about how she helped me with college applications. I didn't even argue. I just laughed and said, "Help? Oh, you mean when you convinced our parents that my dream school was too expensive?" That was so helpful. The laughter that followed wasn't for her. But the best part, Brian, the fiancé, was starting to catch on. Vanessa had always been careful about what she let him see. The cracks were forming. He didn't know about her habit of stealing other girls' crushes. He didn't know about her history of manipulating people. And he definitely didn't know about the things she had said about him before they got engaged. So, oops, a mutual friend, someone who had also been burned by Vanessa, reached out to Brian. They had proof old messages Vanessa had sent, mocking him, treating him as a backup plan. I didn't send it myself. I didn't have to. The truth had a way of surfacing on its own. An old group chat message where Vanessa had mocked him, calling him a safe choice and joking that he was better than being alone. It was an accident, of course. A slip of the fingers. These things happen. And just like that, Vanessa's perfect little world started to shift. She wasn't getting the reactions she expected. People weren't laughing at her jokes the way they used to. Family wasn't blindly taking her side. And Brian? He was paying way more attention now. Vanessa tried to regain control. At another family event, she threw out a classic humiliation attempt, loudly commenting on how I had been so awkward in school and how it was cute that I had finally come out of my shell. But this time, I didn't just sit there. I smiled. Yeah, Vanessa, I was awkward in high school. Must have been tough for you, constantly chasing after my leftovers. The room erupted. For the first time, the joke was on her, and she knew it. That was when I realized this wasn't just about revenge. This was about taking back my life. And I was just getting started. Vanessa's wedding planning turned into a full-scale production overnight. She wanted a lavish venue, designer dress, extravagant floral arrangements, the works. And of course, she expected our father to foot the bill. At a family gathering, she started dropping hints about needing a little help covering expenses. It wasn't even subtle. She talked about how family support was so important and how our father had always been there for her. I knew exactly where this was going. So, before anyone could respond, I leaned back in my chair and asked, "Oh, does that mean you'll be helping me the same way when I get married?" Silence. My father shifted uncomfortably. My stepmother looked like she just bit into a lemon. Vanessa, caught off guard, tried to regain control. She launched into a speech about how her situation was different, how timing mattered, how they had more financial flexibility back then. No one looked convinced. An aunt chimed in, "Well, fairness is important, isn't it?" That was the moment I realized people were starting to notice the pattern. Vanessa wasn't the golden child anymore, and Brian, her fiancé, noticed too. From that point on, he wasn't as enthusiastic about wedding planning. At first, it was small things, pushing back venue visits, not immediately agreeing to expensive decisions. But then, a few days later, I got a message from one of his friends. Apparently, the screenshot I accidentally sent had made its way around. Brian's friend wanted to know if there was more to the story. Oh, there was more. So I sent him a few old messages, proof that Vanessa had referred to Brian as her backup option and not really her type, but stable. Nothing dramatic, just screenshots of things she actually said. A day later, Brian started noticing inconsistencies. At first, it was small things, hesitations in Vanessa's stories, casual remarks from her friends that contradicted what she had told him. Then, at a dinner with his family, his sister mentioned Vanessa's past relationship in passing. Brian's expression shifted, but he didn't say anything. Later, in private, he asked Vanessa about it. She laughed it off, dismissing it as something that wasn't serious, but Brian wasn't convinced. The seed of doubt was planted, and from that moment, he began looking at her differently. But I knew the truth. I had witnessed the truth. She tried to gaslight him, of course. That wasn't serious. That was just a fling. But Brian wasn't buying it. The next time I saw them together, the energy was off. Vanessa was tense. Brian was distracted. She pulled me aside, her tone fake sweet. "I know what you're doing." I just smiled. "What do you mean?" That's when she snapped. Loudly, in front of half the family, she accused me of trying to ruin her wedding. That I was jealous, vindictive, bitter. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't react emotionally. I just shrugged and said, "I'm just making sure everyone knows the full truth." A few relatives exchanged glances. For the first time, Vanessa wasn't in control of the narrative, and she knew it. Brian started investigating on his own. He reached out to old friends, looked into stories Vanessa had told him. It didn't take long for him to find more inconsistencies. Then, the biggest shift yet, one of our aunts, who had always been neutral, openly defended me. "She's not lying," she said bluntly. "Vanessa has done this kind of thing for years." Vanessa's face dropped. She tried to do damage control. Suddenly, she was so nice to me, complimenting my outfit. asking about my job, acting like we were best friends. I didn't fall for it. Neither did Brian. He told her they should slow down on wedding planning, that maybe they needed to take some time to make sure they were on the same page. Vanessa lost it. For the first time in her life, she wasn't getting what she wanted just by manipulating people. She called me a homewrecker, accused me of poisoning Brian's mind, said I was trying to ruin her happiness. I just laughed. Vanessa, this is just the beginning. And I walked away, leaving her standing there, furious, panicked, and for the first time ever, completely powerless. Word about Vanessa's past was spreading. Conversations shifted. At family gatherings, people hesitated before blindly taking Vanessa's side. A few old friends distanced themselves quietly, no dramatic breakups, just less enthusiasm to engage. The change was subtle at first, but undeniable her influence was waning, not through scandal, but through accumulated doubt. At first, Vanessa ignored it. She acted like everything was normal, keeping up the same smug attitude she always had. But I noticed something different. Brian wasn't as affectionate anymore. He wasn't as quick to agree with her, and when she spoke, he listened differently, like he was actually questioning things. Then he stopped talking about wedding plans. Vanessa noticed. She tried to push things forward, casually bringing up finalizing dates, booking venues. Brian stalled, said they should take their time, make sure they were both on the same page. Vanessa's smile stayed in place, but I could tell she was panicking. And then, the fake apologies started. She pulled me aside at a family event, acting unusually sweet, asking about my job, saying she wanted to put the past behind us. It was so obvious. This wasn't an apology, it was damage control. I didn't reject her outright. I just smiled, played along. She wasn't fooling anyone. And then something interesting happened. One of Vanessa's old friends reached out to Brian. Someone from years ago, someone Vanessa had long since cut off. Apparently, she had been lying about her past. Brian had believed she had never been in a serious relationship before him. That's what she told him. Anyway, the truth? She had a long-term boyfriend in college. A messy breakup. And she had hidden all of it. Brian confronted her. She tried to laugh it off, make excuses, but he wasn't buying it. And then Vanessa snapped. She found me alone after dinner, cornering me in the hallway. Her face was red, her voice low and sharp. She accused me of ruining her life, of destroying her relationship, of being obsessed with her. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just shrugged and said, I didn't do anything, Vanessa. I just told the truth. That's when she really lost it. I just stood there, letting her rant. And when she was done, I walked away. For the first time, she had no control over the situation. And then I found out something even worse. Vanessa was in financial trouble. She had always lived beyond her means. Fancy vacations, designer clothes, expensive dinners. I had assumed Brian was funding it. Turns out he wasn't. She had maxed out multiple credit cards, and Brian had no idea. So I let that information slip to someone who would care, Brian's sister. She had always been protective of Brian, always skeptical of Vanessa. And now, she had something concrete to dig into. The next time I saw Vanessa, she looked exhausted. Her perfect image was cracking. She was losing control. And for the first time, she was the one scrambling to fix it. Brian was seeing the cracks now. The lies, the entitlement, the way Vanessa always twisted things in her favor. It was all becoming too obvious to ignore. He wasn't as affectionate anymore. He didn't jump to defend her like he used to. Conversations between them were shorter, less warm. Vanessa noticed. She started clinging harder, showering Brian with attention, overcompensating, acting sweeter, more loving, as if that could erase the growing doubts in his mind. But it wasn't working. The more she tried to tighten her grip, the more Brian pulled away. And then, the financial bomb dropped. Brian's sister had been paying attention. After I casually mentioned Vanessa's spending habits, she started digging. She took a closer look at Vanessa's lifestyle, the designer clothes, expensive vacations, luxury apartment. Something wasn't adding up. So she confronted Brian. At first, he didn't believe it. Vanessa had always painted herself as financially responsible, someone who just knew how to get good deals. But when his sister showed him proof, bank statements Vanessa had carelessly left around during family visits, it was undeniable. Thousands in debt, credit cards maxed out. Brian went straight to Vanessa. She tried to brush it off, make excuses, say it was just temporary. But Brian wasn't stupid. He asked why she never mentioned any of this before, why she expected his family to fund a wedding when she was drowning in bills. She had no real answer. That's when she panicked. She did what she always did, blamed me. She told Brian that I had set her up, that I was spreading lies to ruin her wedding, that I had always been jealous and was trying to break them up. But Brian wasn't buying it, because at this point too many things weren't adding up. And his family? They were done. They had been willing to help with the wedding before, but after seeing the truth, they pulled their financial support. No more blank checks. No more expensive gifts. If Vanessa wanted a lavish wedding, she was going to have to pay for it herself. She lost it. At the next family dinner, in front of everyone, she snapped. Her voice rose, her face turned red. She pointed at me, called me a liar, accused me of ruining her life. The room fell silent. No one took her side. Even my father, who had always let her get away with everything, looked embarrassed. My stepmother's mouth was pressed into a thin line, her eyes darting between us, unsure whether to step in or let Vanessa self-destruct. And that's exactly what she was doing. Brian stood up, muttered something about needing to go, and left. Vanessa's face drained of color. She realized she had just made everything worse. And it didn't stop there. The next few days were a mess. She called Brian constantly, left long messages, begged him to talk. She cried, promised she would change, swore she just needed a chance to explain. But it was too late. Brian wasn't coming back. A week later, he officially put the wedding on hold, indefinitely. And that was it. Vanessa floundered. She tried to salvage the situation, reassuring Brian, spinning stories to make herself seem like the victim. But the charm that had once worked was wearing thin. Doubt had taken root, and no amount of pleading could undo it. Brian made the difficult decision to call off the wedding, quietly moving his things out of their shared space. Vanessa's panic turned inward, but instead of gloating, I simply moved forward focused on my own life, leaving her to handle the mess she had created. I saw her one last time before everything collapsed completely. She looked exhausted. The confident, smug expression she always carried was gone. I didn't gloat. I didn't rub it in. I just looked at her and said, "You spent your whole life trying to tear me down. Now you're standing in the rubble of your own mess." And then I walked away. For the first time, Vanessa had to deal with the consequences of her own actions. Vanessa was officially out of my life, and for the first time I felt free. No more dealing with her drama, no more worrying about what lie she was telling next. She had spent years trying to make my life miserable, but now, she was too busy dealing with the wreckage of her own mistakes, and while she spiraled, I thrived. Work was going better than ever. A few months after Brian left Vanessa, I got promoted. The same job Vanessa had once tried to sabotage, I was excelling in it. Management took notice of my hard work, and I was offered a leadership position. A raise, better hours, more respect. It was everything I had worked for. Vanessa, of course, tried to pretend like nothing had changed. She posted inspirational quotes about healing and growth all over social media, like she hadn't just torpedoed her own life. But people weren't buying it. Friends distanced themselves. She wasn't getting invited to gatherings as much. Even family events were different. People weren't as eager to defend her anymore. Then Brian moved on. It happened fast. A few months after the breakup, he started seeing someone new. Someone kind, low drama, the complete opposite of Vanessa. And Vanessa lost it. She didn't say it outright, but I knew it was killing her. She posted passive-aggressive rants about how people move on too quickly, and how some women pretend to be nice but are actually snakes. No names, but it was obvious who she was talking about. Meanwhile, her financial situation kept getting worse. Without Brian helping cover expenses, her debt caught up to her. She had always lived beyond her means, expecting someone else to clean up the mess. But this time, there was no one to bail her out. She started selling things, designer bags, jewelry, anything she could get quick cash for. And then, something I never thought I'd hear, my father admitted he had treated me unfairly. It wasn't a grand apology, but it was something. He mentioned how he had been too lenient with Vanessa, how he should have been more supportive of me. Maybe it was because he finally saw Vanessa's true colors, or maybe because he realized I had been right all along. Either way, it was the closest thing to an acknowledgement I was ever going to get. Vanessa, of course, refused to take accountability. She tried for a comeback, started posting selfies with captions about starting fresh and new beginnings. She even hinted at a new business venture, but no one cared. People saw through it. The girl who had spent years tearing others down wasn't fooling anyone with her growth narrative. Meanwhile, my personal life was thriving. An old friend, someone Vanessa had once manipulated into turning against me, reached out. We reconnected, and the more we talked, the more I realized that he had always liked me. But back then, Vanessa had poisoned the well. Told him I wasn't interested, made up stories, made sure we never got close. Now, that wasn't a problem anymore. And karma wasn't done with Vanessa yet. Vanessa had always played the role of the competent professional, masking her lack of real skills with charm and vague explanations. But cracks formed when a new manager, who wasn't swayed by charisma, started asking for actual results. Missed deadlines, errors in reports, and complaints from coworkers piled up. A formal warning landed on her desk, but instead of improving, she doubled down on excuses. Then, a major project flopped under her leadership, leaving management no choice but to put her on probation. The job security she once took for granted was slipping fast. A formal warning, HR involvement, one more mistake, and she was done. That's when she reached out to me. A simple message, let's put the past behind us. We're family, after all. I didn't respond. I didn't need to respond. For the first time, she was the one reaching out, the one trying to mend things, the one looking for an olive branch. But I was done. Vanessa spent her whole life making sure I felt small. And now, she was the one who had to sit in the mess she created. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was just free. And that was the best revenge of all. Vanessa was officially at rock bottom. No fiancé, no financial support, and no one left to clean up her messes. Her usual tricks weren't working anymore, and it was clear she was starting to panic. Then, just as expected, she tried to crawl back. A message popped up on my phone, long, overly sweet, full of fake remorse. She wanted to rebuild our sisterhood, said she regretted the past, and hoped we could move forward together. It was obvious. She wasn't sorry. She was desperate. I ignored it. A day later, another message. This time she was so proud of my career growth and really admired how I had come into my own. Still ignored it. Then, she started posting. Instagram, Facebook, her entire feed turned into a motivational seminar. Quotes about self-growth, healing from negativity, and learning to let go of toxic people. A total rebrand, like she could erase everything she had done just by pretending to be a new person. Nobody was buying it. The people who once supported her had moved on. She had burned too many bridges. The invitations to parties, weekend getaways, and brunches had dried up. Even the friends who had been her loyal followers in the past were keeping their distance. And then came the job trouble. Vanessa had always been reckless at work, lying about her qualifications, passing off others' work as her own. When things were going well, she had enough charm to get away with it. But now, the cracks were showing. HR got involved after multiple coworkers filed complaints. Her attitude had worsened, her performance had dropped, and she was one step away from getting fired. With nowhere else to turn, she tried the family angle. She started visiting our father more often, acting like the perfect daughter. Suddenly, she was all about family values and cherishing every moment together. I stayed out of it. I wasn't going to get dragged into whatever game she was playing. At family events, she tried to make small talk with me, asking about work, my social life, pretending we had some kind of bond. I kept my responses short, neutral. I didn't play into it, but I also didn't give her a reason to play the victim. She hated it. So she switched tactics, guilt tripping. Long messages about how family should stick together, how she missed our bond, how she hated that things had turned out this way. I wasn't falling for it. I sent a single reply. Funny how you only miss me when no one else is left to entertain your games. And that was it. She snapped, accused me of being cold, bitter, and vindictive, called me the real manipulator, said I had ruined her life over petty jealousy. I blocked her number. That was the end of it. Even my father, who had always overlooked Vanessa's behavior, finally admitted that I had handled things the right way. He saw her pattern now. He saw how different life was without her constant drama. And me? I kept moving forward. Vanessa's downfall was never my responsibility, it was her own doing. And I wasn't looking back. Vanessa had no one left to manipulate, and it was eating her alive. No fiancés, no friends, no family members willing to clean up her mess. Every time she tried to claw her way back into the social circles she once dominated, she was met with cold indifference. That's when she started blaming me for everything. Suddenly, I was the reason she lost Brian. I was the reason she had money problems. I was the villain in her downfall, not her own selfish decisions. And of course, Vanessa never accepted defeat quietly. With nowhere else to direct her anger, she did the one thing I should have seen coming. She tried to sabotage my job. A carefully worded complaint was sent to my company, accusing me of misconduct. It was strategic, specific enough to sound plausible, but vague enough to avoid direct scrutiny. The email came from a burner account, but my boss had seen enough corporate games to recognize a personal attack. HR quietly investigated, but my spotless record made it easy to dismiss. Then, a slip-up Vanessa had shared the same phrasing with a former coworker of mine in a message weeks prior. When that coworker reached out, it was clear who was behind the attempt. Vanessa's plan had backfired. The moment I heard that, I knew she had finally crossed a legal line. A mutual friend, someone who had distanced themselves from Vanessa but still kept tabs, let her know that if she kept up the harassment, I could take legal action. That's when she panicked. A weak, pathetic apology email landed in my inbox. Something about how she had been emotional and regretted what she had done. There was no real responsibility taken, no acknowledgement of the damage she tried to cause. I saved the email as evidence. And then, I ignored her. She wasn't worth the energy anymore. But Vanessa wasn't done embarrassing herself. She played one last card, the family sympathy card. At a family gathering, she went into full dramatic mode, spinning a sob story about how hard her life had become, how she was struggling, how she had lost so much, and how no one cared about her anymore. It was an obvious attempt to guilt trip everyone back onto her side. And for the first time, no one bought it. Even her stepmother, the one person who had always defended Vanessa blindly, stayed silent. That's when I knew it was over. Years ago, I would have felt sorry for her. I would have let her manipulate me back into being her emotional punching bag. Now, I felt nothing. Just freedom. Vanessa kept spiraling. No friends. No support system. Just an endless cycle of blaming others for her own mistakes. Meanwhile, my life had never been better. My career was thriving. My friendships were stronger than ever. And my relationship, happier, healthier, real. Vanessa, out of options, played her final card, a guilt trip. A long, dramatic message landed in my inbox, filled with regret, accusations, and veiled threats. You'll regret this when I'm gone. My response was simple and calm. I hope you find peace, Vanessa. But I'm done. And with that, I moved forward without looking back. For the first time in my life, Vanessa was powerless. No control, no influence, no ability to twist the narrative. And I was finally free. Her downfall had never been my responsibility. It had always been her own doing. It had been months since I last saw Vanessa. No more desperate messages, no more staged apologies, no more attempts to crawl back into my life. Just silence. And I had never been happier. Without the constant weight of her manipulation dragging me down, everything in my life started falling into place. My job was thriving. A major opportunity landed in my lap, something I never would have achieved if I were still stuck in the cycle of Vanessa's drama. A promotion, a better salary, a chance to travel. And this time, there was no one around to sabotage it. My personal life was even better. I was in a healthy, loving relationship with someone who treated me with actual respect. No passive-aggressive digs, no competition, no one trying to take what was mine. For the first time, I had real peace. Meanwhile, Vanessa was living in the mess she had made. She had no support system left. The people she once manipulated had moved on, tired of the constant drama. Friends stopped answering her calls. Old acquaintances didn't invite her out anymore. She had always relied on other people's approval, but now, no one cared. And my father? For years, he had turned a blind eye to Vanessa's treatment of me. But without her controlling the narrative, something changed. He started seeing me, not as the overdramatic younger sister Vanessa had always painted me as, but as an independent, successful person. He never said it outright, but I could tell. He regretted how things had been handled. And honestly, that was enough for me. Vanessa, of course, tried to make a comeback. She reached out to old friends, posting on social media about fresh starts and cutting out negative people. She made it sound like she was the victim, like she had been wronged, but no one was buying it. I didn't care. I didn't check her social media. I didn't ask about her. I didn't waste a single moment worrying about what she was doing. And when she realized she had no power left, she stopped trying. No more messages, no more guilt trips, no more sudden check-ins. For the first time in years, I had peace. I had always thought revenge meant getting even, exposing Vanessa, making her pay for everything she did. But the truth was, I never needed to destroy her. I just needed to remove her from my life. And that was enough. I set firm boundaries for the future. Family didn't mean tolerating toxicity. Love didn't mean letting someone walk all over me. And now, my support system was stronger than ever. Real friends, real love, real happiness. Vanessa? She was just a distant memory. Karma had done its job, and I didn't even have to lift a finger. The best revenge wasn't ruining her. It was thriving without her.